Welcome to Giving Back is Dead. First of all, we would like to thank Offscreen for hosting these talks, and in particular Julian Friedman, who had this incredible vision of Offscreen, and Jean-Daniel Compin. Giving Back is Dead is about the next generation looking at giving to the arts. During the next few days, we're going to have a series of conversations, one with an art advisor, one with a collector, and one with an artist. In today's talk, we're speaking with Michael Rudokas, art advisor. Michael Rudokas is Senior Director and Advisor at Schwartzman and. Thank you, Michael, for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
I wonder if you'd talk a little bit, Michael, about what you do at Schwartzman and your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I first wanted to start, when you invited me to be on this, or to have this conversation with you, I was a little reluctant because of the title, Giving Back is Dead. I feel we do, with our clients, we work towards a lot of philanthropic goals, and so I wanted to get a little bit from you, if I could, about where you were going with the title.
Giving Back is Dead is supposed to be provocative. And as you said, most of my friends and most of the people of my generation hate this title. So it's supposed to be provocative, and it really came about because as I began to work with younger people on their views to philanthropy, I realized that they had a completely different way of looking about giving, and in particular to the arts. And essentially, it seemed that, if I would summarize it quickly, that what they look for is they look to make the world a better place. Make the world a better place. And they tell me, how is giving to the arts making the world a better place? And I believe that if those of us who believe in the arts and believe in funding all the activities of the arts, its institutions, its projects, we must begin to address how the next generation is looking to actually philanthropy in general, and in particular to the arts. And I've seen with young people, they have a special difficulty with the arts. They do not want to fund things that are clearly seen as elitist and exclusionary. And they mostly see the arts as elitist and exclusionary. So that's why I decided that what we had to do is we had to have a series of one-on-one conversations with people to talk about how can we engage them in the arts to continue to be sure that the arts are funded.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me again. When I started thinking about this question, I realized first that people have trouble imagining things that don't exist yet. So I do think that the idea of giving back is changing a little bit, and I think that some of the old models of maybe giving to major institutions as your only philanthropic deed might be changing. What I'm seeing is a generation of collectors that want to give back in different ways. So, for example, I have this one collector that came to me, and with the original intention of just developing an art collection that she could live with in her home. And within a year, she realized that she had bigger goals, that she wanted to focus her collecting on art that looked at different social justice categories, from climate change and with a specific focus on mass incarceration. And
mass incarceration.
Mass incarceration and criminal justice reform.
How did that happen? Why was she interested in that?
She did a dissertation on how diabetes disproportionately affects women in prison. And while doing her PhD, she also was studying museum studies, and this was in Cincinnati. So I think that she was collecting art, and she was like, how can I marry my interest in criminal justice reform and collecting art? And we began a series of long conversations about what that would look like, and it happened to be at the same time that a great show at PS1 called Marking Time was on. So the curator of that, Kate Fowler, did an amazing job and has been a guidebook really for us developing her collection. And so we really focused on formerly incarcerated artists at first.
Artists who have been incarcerated.
Formerly incarcerated artists, yeah. There are a number of the Jesse Crimes is one of them, Jared Owens, Sarah Bennett. Yeah, there's a very long list, and I think that collecting these names calls attention to mass incarceration through art as problematic in our society. So the collector I work with wanted to not only, she found it actually challenging to develop this collection and then hang it in her home. And so, for the last couple of years, we've been working, and I will say again, this is her vision. I'm only able to help her really develop a collection because that's what I'm good at. So
That's the way I work as well.
Yeah.
The initiator has to express really what they want to do.
But it's great to work with someone with vision. It actually makes my job easier. But her other goal is to open, and this is very far along, there's been a building purchased in Cincinnati to develop a series of galleries that are public art spaces where she can both house her collection, open to the public, but also develop programming for the community, inviting artists who have causes, from mass incarceration and criminal justice reform to the environment and climate change, to come there and do projects that can hopefully be used as an educational tool for young people in the community.
And are there some artists that are also big names, high recognized names in the art market?
Yeah, in addition to Andrea Bowers, she also has collected Robert Colescott, Titus Kaphar, many artists and she still collects outside of this collecting, outside of the social justice collecting category.
She does collect other things.
From time to time, but because the collection is being made with limited resources, she tends to focus her buying in the social justice sphere.
So of course this example that you're giving is exactly the kind of example that I'm hearing from this next generation. Social justice and also particularly working with underrepresented communities.
Yep.
So this is exactly what you're saying. And you said, if I understood correctly, she doesn't live in Cincinnati, but she's decided to open a space in Cincinnati.
That's right, yeah. She lives between New York City and Berkeley. And so it was important for her to not open this space in either of those places where there's less need. She said to me one time, she's like, the last place that I would ever want to open, ever want to house my collection or develop these programmings around it would be New York or like Los Angeles or Berkeley, where there's really a lack of need, is how she put it. But Cincinnati, she was there doing her dissertation. She noticed that there was a real lack of programming that addresses social justice needs. So it was natural for her to open these galleries there.
And tell us about the programming. What is the programming intended to be?
It's really still in the developmental stages. I've had a number of conversations as an art advisor with formerly incarcerated artists. It's very interesting because some of these artists are actually they're not interested in selling their artwork. One woman goes into prison and takes pictures of other incarcerated women. And so the thought of selling those images to someone was just, it wasn't right. But she was agreeable to doing a project where she would display her work within the context of a gallery and within the context of this collection.
And how do you see the programming developing?
The programming.
How will it be? Who is the audience for this, and how will it?
It's still in a very, it's in an incubator phase. The space has been bought.
It's an existing space?
It's an existing space, an older building in downtown Cincinnati. We're currently developing an advisory board that will really overlook and be in charge of all of the programming. But some of the conversations that we've been having are, like with this woman, Sarah Bennett, she wants to bring a counterpart of hers that was doing a similar project in a men's prison and kind of have them curate a show together that will, and how that can be effective within a community remains to be seen. We imagine that this will be, this can be used as a tool for educating people in the area and hopefully beyond.
And educating what kind of people? What is there a special
I
socioeconomic?
think that, yeah, I mean, the hope is sure, but I guess it would be anyone who doesn't have access to this kind of knowledge or have access to these ideas made visual through art. So I think, yes, school people, I think that school-aged people, I think that there will be certainly a contingent of those who are underprivileged, but I imagine even the young people in that area who are privileged will probably learn from some of these exhibits as well, hopefully.
And you say that she's thinking about this in terms of a module. So she thinks if this is successful, she will set this up in other places?
Not yet, no.
I see.
Not yet. But I mean, other examples, you know, I'm now thinking as we're talking through this, is I wonder, I won't say how old she is, but she's older than me. She's not a millennial. And so I wouldn't call her, the next generation thinking about philanthropy. And I'm curious to hear more as these conversations go on with how the real younger generation begin to think about philanthropy. There is another great collector that our firm has worked with for many years who came to us during COVID, who had been spending a lot more time around their art collection. This happens to be a family that also has a philanthropic wing to their family office who's constantly thinking about how can we give back, but they realized during this time of living with their art that they weren't, they hadn't married their interests, their philanthropic interests with their art collecting interests. So they came to us and they were together. We've been designing programs within the city in which they live that are philanthropic in nature, but geared towards the arts.
Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's still, again, these are in the nascent stages, but they live in Chicago, and one of the things that we realized while talking and researching was that, Chicago is a city with such a rich cultural history in the visual arts, in the performing arts, in the music.
And also terribly segregated.
Absolutely. And
it's one of the most, I think it's one of the most segregated cities in the world.
And within that segregation, rich cultural traditions in all areas. And so we thought together that if we could put together a comprehensive book about the rich cultural history of Chicago, that would be, one doesn't exist, which we thought was really fascinating. So in order to do that, we certainly weren't going to do it. But we could hire an advisory board. We could find the right people in Chicago that would know the right people to be the editors of this book. And so this collecting family could commission that book, which could be used in all areas of education in Chicago and beyond.
So, but you as a millennial, how have you reacted to working on these? What do you think about these ideas? How you personally, how has this affected you, and how has it affected your thinking about giving to the arts?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking with friends about this last night, and I would lie if I didn't say that it didn't make me feel good. It makes me feel very good. But again, I'm helping to facilitate someone else's vision. And so I can't take credit I can take credit for some of these ideas, or I could take credit together with the team of people from my office that we work on to come up with these ideas. But it's really being lucky enough to being asked by someone with vision to help them on this. It's great to think about new things that don't exist, new models.
In all of my discussions and the little bit of work that I've done with the younger generation, these are exactly the kind of issues that engage them and engage them in the arts. Is that what you think as well, as you're working on this?
I mean, absolutely. I think that it's what brought me to this business is my love of art, and to understand that without nurturing young artists, which include artists of color and underprivileged people, then the art world will die. So it's important that there are people within the art market that are doing things to enrich these areas that will grow and develop and allow us to continue to do what we do.
You also mentioned to me in an earlier conversation, you saw a change relative, or particularly what you think about the giving to major institutions as opposed to giving to smaller organizations.
Yeah, I mean, look, I realized after I said that, and if you were going to ask me that question, I certainly don't want to be on video saying that, you should never give to MoMA or the Guggenheim, because of course you should. These are great institutions, but there are a lot of grassroots organizations in all over the U.S. and the world that I think that could use money sometimes more than these larger institutions can. So for sure, I think that. And I think that they do a good job fundraising, but I think that more funds could be directed towards some of these smaller organizations that make real impact within the community that they are in.
Can you think of anything in particular?
I'm trying to. I think small. I mean, I live in New York, so if we look at the model that the collector that I'm working with is looking towards Cincinnati. I love that model, but I'm in New York, so those small institutions that I look at are places like the Drawing Center or the Swiss Institute.
And you feel that giving to these organizations is relevant?
Totally relevant. I mean, Artist Space is another great and small institution in New York that has some of the most forward-thinking curatorial vision that I know of, and so.
And what does that mean? Forward-thinking curatorial vision?
They're discovering artists and bringing them to a greater audience. Their track record is very strong, and I always go there and I encounter an artist that I had never heard of before that is major and super interesting, and so I guess that's what I mean.
You also mentioned to me that at Schwartzman there are also some initiatives that have begun that you think are particularly interesting.
Yeah, this is very exciting. I mean, it's exciting for me because as a company, we asked ourselves, what can we do beyond advising people with their own visions? What can we do as an organization to maybe make change on our own? This is a new firm, and so we were hiring people two and a half years ago. And we found that it was nearly impossible to hire diversely within our field. And so we partnered with Paul O'Neill, who used to work in development at Georgetown, and we were developing an internship. We're partnering also with Hunter College and developing an internship program where we'll be funding internships in various organizations around New York City, from galleries to small institutions like the Artist Space or the Swiss Institute, and this hopefully will be launching next summer. So Hunter will likely do the, they'll be working with their students to fill these positions, but hopefully over time that will create a more diverse pool of people within the professional arts organizations.
And how do you determine the funding of this? Is it a percentage of profits?
You mean how are we funding it?
Yeah, how is Schwartzman
No, we're
funding
raising money through our clients.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, and beyond. So, I mean, we still are trying to raise some money, so if you know of anybody else, send them our way. It's not a very large amount of money, but yeah, we're hoping to raise most of it from within our own clients.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think
talk on this topic?
I hope that giving back is not dead. I hope that it just continues to change and get a little bit more dynamic.
We do not think that giving back is dead. We think that giving back is evolving in a different direction, and I think it's evolving more in the direction of what you describe, more in terms of social impact and social justice issues. And I think that those of us in the arts, we do have a story to tell, and we're not telling it sufficiently.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for coming in for the talk today.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
Bye. Be sure to check out our latest podcast and subscribe to Giving Back is Dead.